I want to make this video to give you the tips I learned basically while bikepacking or hiking in the winter in Sweden. So here in Skåne, it's in the south of Sweden, it doesn't necessarily get very cold, but like for example last night it was to minus 12 degrees Celsius, so it can get cold. And basically when you go below zero you start to have some consideration that you basically discover. Below zero the water is freezing, so that's basically your main consideration. And the first tip that I want to give you is basically be careful with your water, where you store your water. If you store your water in a bottle and you put it outside your backpack, it's gonna get frozen, so that be careful. And concerning the use of camelback, you know, like the water reservoir that you have on your back and you have a tube, be careful that the water doesn't get frozen in the tube. So my first tip is concerning the water, and mostly in the water bag, where basically in the night, don't forget, empty your tube, disconnect it, or if you can't disconnect it, put the tube in your backpack so it doesn't get frozen. And keep your water reservoir basically in your backpack or in your sleeping bag if you can, because you don't want it to be frozen. It's a hell after to basically unfrozen. And second tip is directly linked. If you have a water reservoir which can accept boiling water, like check with your where you buy it that the bag can have directly boiling water, then what you can do is that before you go to sleep, you basically boil water to basically clean it also. You boil your waters, then you put it in the reservoir, and then you put your reservoir in the backpack. This one here, which is Osprey Hydraulics, and this is the last version, and the great thing with it is that you can disconnect, but I make another video specifically on that one. But then, you know, yesterday I just filled it up with boiling water, and then I put it, you know, inside the sleeping bag. So when I went into the sleeping bag is warm, and it keeps warm, because that's your purpose of sleeping bag. Next tip is time. Time is mostly in Sweden. Be careful when you start, okay, and when you're gonna arrive. You have to know, like, if you're walking in the snow, you're gonna be slower, so you have to calculate that. And in Sweden, the sun is like setting at 3:30, you know, around like that. So you have to time your hike. You don't necessarily want to do it by night, so time your hike well and know when the sun is rising or when it's setting, so that you can have, you know, like enough time to do your hike. The third tip is your boots. Your boots are gonna get wet. Like, even if you have Gore-Tex boots, they are gonna get wet. After maybe a day, they're gonna be soaking wet because you were just walking in the snow and your pants may be dripping inside the boots. Whatever, it's gonna get wet. My main issue is that, yes, you can dry it with the firewood and this kind of thing, but my main issue, if a boot is wet and is staying outside in the night under zero, then it's gonna get frozen. And that is the most painful things you can have, which is to in the morning put frozen boots. It's like having ski shoes, you know, like this plastic, super rigid, and is like all cold. So you don't want that. And I had this experience, and thanks to another YouTuber, is called Mihal, he gave me a good tips for that. Basically what you do is you put your boot in the plastic bag, okay, and you put them at the end of your sleeping bag next to your feet. So why you want to do that is because first of all the plastic bag will keep the humidity of your boots, you know, in the plastic bag. You want it closed so that it doesn't go in the sleeping bag, but the main thing is that it's gonna keep the boots from being frozen overnight. So the next morning you can take out your boot. They are wet, but they are not frozen, so that's much better. Concerning the boots, there is another thing, is use a garbage bag. You just, put your feet into a garbage bag and your boot, then you have an extra layer of water protection, and that's something you can change. So it helps you like to keep a bit isolated also from the water, from your feet. And lastly, but really actually the most important, layers. And yes, having a good jacket and so on, this is a very important thing. I love mine. Good pants is very important, but my most important is base layer. It's what you put directly on your skin. And I will just have one advice. It's use merino wool. Merino wool is the best I have ever experienced. It keeps you dry. I mean, it keeps you warm because it's wool. It keeps you dry. It dries super fast, and it doesn't smell. Merino wool is a bit expensive, mostly when you buy it like 100% merino, I don't know, like good quality merino wool. It's a bit expensive, but it's totally worth it. Like, I hike myself with like merino socks, which also dry very fast, so that's great. And a pant, not the pant, but underpant, which is in merino wool, and my base layer, which is in merino wool. And honestly, I only have my jacket and my base layer. That's all I have, and it was -12. I have no problem with it. Because, when you hike, you sweat, and then after when you stop, the sweat will start to become cold. And that's the point of like having something that dry fast, because by the time you're making fire or whatever, your base layer is already dry. That's my experience, and that's, I will always advise merino wool, and actually not only for hiking but for every day, because it keeps you from smelling also. If you do like sweat a lot, then you have a tendency maybe to smell a bit more than usual, then that will keep you dry and keep you basically cleaner, we're gonna say like that. So that will be all for my winter tips, and I hope you enjoyed it, and let me know what you think.